Hello, I'm Annie Musu, a certified EFT tapping master practitioner. I help women build confidence, set boundaries, and enjoy healthy relationships. Welcome to my podcast, Hush Your Mind, building a better relationship with yourself. On this show, I offer practical wisdom to help you clear fears, limiting beliefs, and trauma so that you can gracefully create a life you love. Thanks for joining me in episode number 26 of my podcast, Hush Your Mind, building a better relationship with yourself. Someone recently asked me, do you have any advice on how to stop being triggered in relationships? She often found herself in this typical scenario. Her partner calls to invite her to a hike or an art show. Immediately, her body tenses up and her stomach feels nauseous. The words, "Yes, I'd love to go," spurt out of her mouth before she realizes what's happening. After hanging up the phone, she takes a few deep breaths and recenters herself. How did this happen again? She wonders. Horrified, she snatches her agenda. Am I even available the day of the outing? The emotional trigger, her partner's invitation, sparked anxiety within 2 seconds, creating a cascade of actions. Ignoring her own needs, saying yes, beating herself up, and eventually feeling resentful in the relationship. Have you experienced something similar? It's extremely frustrating. No one likes to feel like a hostage to their emotions. So how do we stop being triggered in relationships so that we can be true to ourselves and enjoy fulfilling connections? The first step is acknowledge your emotions in your body. It's too easy to brush our painful emotions aside. Most of us live busy lives, pouncing on one task after another. Our modern society certainly makes it hard to slow down. And facing our negative emotions can be intimidating. But if we don't acknowledge them, they get stored in our subconscious and make themselves known in other, sometimes destructive ways. In my Inquirer's story, the obligation to say yes came from the childhood habit of people-pleasing to gain a mother's love. It's helpful to have an excellent understanding of how our old wounds affect us today. Becoming aware of our difficult emotions and their ties to the past gives us a bigger perspective. We can take a step back and give ourselves some grace. Yet my inquirer felt perplexed that despite years of talk therapy, she couldn't shake off her self-sacrificing tendencies. That's because our intellectual understanding isn't enough. We need to acknowledge and release these feelings from our subconscious mind and body if we want to move forward with ease. So the first thing is to get into the habit of checking in with our bodies throughout the day. Before you start a new task, take a moment and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? What physical tension am I experiencing? That tension is stress manifesting in your body. Breathe deeply through any tension. If you like, cross your hands over your heart while breathing deeply to feel extra grounded. Step number 2, identify your triggers. For years, I observed a strange recurring event. A friend and I agree on a date for our next hangout. Oftentimes, they arrive practically out of breath, which gives me the impression our hangout isn't important to them. But my friend is on time, more or less. They manage to collect their thoughts, and we enjoy a nourishing conversation over Earl Grey tea as usual. One day, they forgot about our hangout. They apologized. Later on, they forgot again. I couldn't help but feel abandoned. This has happened with other friends too. I couldn't understand. Each friend reassured me that our friendship mattered. Yet my rational tendencies invalidated my feelings. So instead, I stayed curious. I asked myself what's happening right before I feel bad in relationships in general. I started a brief list of my own emotional triggers. For example, a friend stands me up. A friend calls me only when they need help. My husband complains about something. Mom doesn't ask me how I'm doing. My in-laws criticize my decisions. Note that the type of relationship can influence our triggers. For example, my heart pounds when my husband complains, but I stayed rather calm when a friend complains. Now that I'm more aware of my emotions in my body, that's step number 1, I can stay grounded and better navigate these sticky situations. And finally, step number 3, trace the emotional trigger. When we get triggered, we often blame the other person. Their words or actions made us feel awful. They should apologize and make amends. End of story, right? Not quite. If we want to find peace of mind, we must realize that waiting for others to change disempowers us. We can't control others' behaviors, but we can manage our reactions. Instead of looking outwards, we can contemplate, when have I felt this way in my body before? What conclusions have I made about myself when this happens? A current issue often mirrors past trauma, unhealed wounds, insecurities, or unmet needs. We definitely don't want to blame ourselves for others' harmful actions. People who hurt us should obviously apologize and commit to doing the right thing. At the same time, we can learn how to stop being triggered in relationships by identifying specific past events that echo the current issue. Then we can use EFT tapping to release the original pain associated with the trigger from our bodies. This is essential to liberate ourselves from the emotional trigger. The feelings of abandonment that hit my chest when my friend forgot our hangouts also emerged when my mom forgot me at school. Actually, my 5-year-old self didn't know that my mom was running late. The agony was the same. In this case, I could use these EFT statements. Even though I felt abandoned when my mom was late, I accept how I feel. Even though I feel this abandonment in my chest, I accept how I feel. Even though I believed that I wasn't lovable, I accept how I feel. What statements could you use for your own trigger? If you're new to EFT or need a refresher, check out podcast episode number 3 to learn the tapping points. So let me leave you with this. Once we release the pain from past events, we can breathe a little easier in our relationships. The self-awareness that we've cultivated, mixed with the power of EFT tapping, helps us stay calmer and more present, improve communication with loved ones, and foster gratifying connections. If you still get triggered often, there may be deeper layers to clear. I guide brave souls in one-to-one sessions to release hidden subconscious blocks that are holding them back. Above all, emotional triggers invite us to come home to ourselves first, to better understand who we are and validate our own emotions and needs. And in turn, the compassion we develop for ourselves nourishes our relationships with others. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Hush Your Mind. Keep in touch with me by subscribing to my twice-a-month newsletter or following me on Insight Timer. And if you'd like some personalized support, book a free call at hushyourmind.com/coaching. The links are in the show notes. May you have the courage to love and accept yourself. Be well and take care.